So, Jen,
Yeah.
I've gathered you here today to discuss a very important topic to both of us. So, you remember when we were kids and we used to play wolves?
Yes, I remember.
Okay, so for everyone in the audience, I'm going to give you a little bit of context. So, back when we were in elementary school, because that's when Jen and I met, um, our first introduction was, "Hey, did you actually get hit by a car?" And ever since then, I haven't been able to get rid of her. Um, but we used to go into these fields around our elementary school and we would play wolves. And what we would do was we would define ourselves. So I'd be like, oh, I'm a black alpha wolf and I have brown polka dotted spots all over my paws. And I have a pink nose and red eyes when I turn angry. And Jen, what was your favorite wolf that you played?
Oh, dude, I don't remember. I think I was always like a black wolf, right?
Yeah, black wolf or like a cream colored wolf.
Yeah, or like I was probably like something similar to Bolto if I'm
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It was always Balto, I remember.
Yeah, and we would like spend like cuz we would have like two recesses and we would spend the first recess just describing what we look like.
And then like the second part was when we started getting like really into the nitty and gritty. Okay. Like we used to play this game where we would run to one side of the field and that would be our like den. So we would have like a bunch of trees that were in like this kind of triangle and we're isolated away from the rest of the playground. And then we would run all the way to the other side. And this was like the hunting area where we would like go around and like hunt deer. Sometimes there just wasn't anything to hunt, or like we would bring a snack from lunch and that would be our deer that we would bring back to the den.
Oh yeah.
But one time we ended up catching a boy who had wandered into the field and we were like, okay, we're gonna cook up Jesse. And so we brought him back to the den, shoved him into a tree, and we were cooking him, and all us wolves were running around yipping. Let me just tell you, it was a scene I'd like to proudly say we no longer do this anymore, but this is what playing wolves was like. We also played horses, and we also played mermaids, like every other like 2-year-old elementary school peoples, right? So later in our lives, there were people who took playing wolves a little bit more seriously.
Mhm.
The biggest, perhaps, realization that I had was in high school. There was this guy that we went to school with, and his name was Brad. And so this one day, we're all sitting down at this lunch table, and Brad comes walking in, and I have my back turned to him, so I don't actually see initially, but one of my friends points him out. And so, like, collectively, we all do like the slow turn, like zoom in, enhance, look at this guy. And he is no word of a lie. He's wearing a yukata, which is like a Japanese kind of style robe. And he's wearing these big old wooden geisha shoes. He has his samurai sword tucked next to him. He has little fox ears on. And he had a foxtail. And my friend who pointed out kindly that Brad was walking by, he's like, okay, everyone sit down. I have to go get that foxtail. Just typical high school shenanigans, right? You can't walk into you can't walk into a high school with the yukata geisha shoes on and expect just to keep walking, you know? And so our friend, Chad, sneaks up to Brad and he pulls out his foxtail. It was not a normal foxtail, okay? Like, let me just preface this. He was enjoying himself and his foxtail. And yeah, that was probably one of the first bigger interactions with the furry community that I think I've had. Jen, do you have any furry?
Actually, yeah, I do because I grew up like obsessed with drawing wolves because that was my thing. And I was a deviant art kid. And I remember loving the movie Balto. And, I would draw Balto and I had friends online. But then as I got older, some of these friends took it a little bit more serious and they started buying like just, like the typical furry stuff, like sometimes they would start off with ears and then they would start getting like the whole like fursuit. But I think my actual first huge encounter with it is I didn't know what Rule 34 was. And I remember being like looking up like my favorite cartoons and then I saw this Rule 34 and I click on it and I'm like, I don't even know how old, 11, and I was like, oh my god, why does that dog look like that? And like, oh my god. And I guess I kind of like this is gonna sound kind of funny. I feel like I coexisted with furries, but not a furry. Like I just had a lot of friends that were more into that, and I never got into that.
So what you're saying, you were furry adjacent.
Yeah, because oh my god, I have another story actually, real quick. When I was in college, I remember I was doodling and I would just like doodle like a little dog. And this girl comes up to me, and I think she was a furry because she was like, "Are you a furry?" She whispered it to me, and I was like, "No, like I'm not a furry." Like, and she literally turned to me and she like winked and she's like, "Shh, it's okay. I know you are." And like walked away. And I was like, "No, like I just like drawing like a dog." Like, but yeah, like I guess you could say like I was like furry adjacent. Like I've seen all kinds of furries. I've seen the good and I have seen the bad.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about when furries go bad.
When furries go wild.
But it's like a zoom in graphic, bah, 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 like ominous. So I want to first talk about what furries are, and then we'll kind of get into it a little bit more. So I'm reading this off of a site called Safer Schools. What are furries? So furries are people who have an active interest in animal characters with human characteristics. These characters are often created by community members who take on a fursona, which is an alternate persona, which is the embodiment of an animal and its personality traits and physical attributes and potential ages. Like, it's just kind of like someone living their best life. Cosplay, but like you're with your own character. So some of these members make vibrant costumes like Jen was talking about. Like, you can just wear ears or your little paws, or some people even have these full-on fursuits. Okay. And for me, fursuits are kind of terrifying because I have a phobia of mascots, but that's just me. And sometimes all these furries will get together and they'll wear them in person or online or in these worldwide conventions or meets as a way of like gathering and collecting space and existing together. Okay, so that's great. Love that for them. There's nothing wrong with showing up and living your best life and cosplaying and having fun and dressing up as your own character. Okay, we're not coming for the furry community at all with this. We're just talking about when some people within the community have done some questionable things. Okay, so beneath the suit is a real person, and sometimes those people have a sexual motivation that is a risk. Okay, so I'm not coming for furries. I'm coming for the people under the suit who are being a little bit crazy. Okay?
Good disclaimer.
Like, I don't want to get attacked by all these furries, please, no. It's okay to hide your personal identity and be a furry, that's fine, as long as you're not messing with kids or animals or grooming people. You do you. It's okay to dress up, is what I'm trying to say. We're not here to ridicule or anything to do with you just enjoying yourself. Okay. So, hi, and welcome to the Decomposing Flower podcast. We are excited to have you here as we delve into some intriguing and occasionally, in this case, yes, very disturbing true crime cases. I'm your host, Kira, and with me is Jen. Everything we say in our podcast is information that we have gathered from testimonies, interviews, and trustful sources, and in this case, a lot of internet sources and discourse. Anything we say is our own opinion. If you disagree or if we get anything wrong, you can always let us know in the comments. We mean no disrespect to any victims or anyone affected by this case. Additionally, if you have any case suggestions, we do have a way of you letting us know what you want to hear in our next episode. So today we're going to be discussing furries. We're going to be discussing a couple of different ones. So first we're going to be discussing Don't Hug Cacti. And we're also going to be talking about a couple of members within the furry community. So a couple disclaimers before we get into it. I'm going to be discussing poop. So if you're eating right now, this probably isn't the episode for you, unless you're like, yep, I'm fine with whatever you want to talk about. It's going to be about the ingestion of poop. So you might not want to listen to that if you're eating. Okay. And I'm going to be talking about some bestiality, some incest, grooming, gross sexual crimes against minors. If you find that upsetting or you're not feeling like you're in the right headspace to listen to this, check out our other episodes. Take a bath, drink a hot chocolate, enjoy the holidays, and take care of yourself. We'll catch you in the next episode. I'm going to talk about Don't Hug Cacti first. So Don't Hug Cacti is kind of a major creator of fursuits. Arguably, in the past, they were one of the biggest in the business. It was co-founded by a couple of people who go by the alias of Lucky Coyote and Scuff Coyote back in 2017. Back in 2020, a tweet was linked to a published document called Regarding Lucky Coyote, aka Blonde Foxy. And in this document, it contains mostly anonymous testimonies from collaborators and ex-friends of Lucky Coyote, alleging him of emotional abuse, animal neglect, and zoophilia. I'm just going to get into zoophilia and what that actually means, because going into this case, I was like, oh, zoophilia, okay, I like going to zoos too. That's not what it means at all. So zoophilia is a term to denote sexual attraction of humans towards non-human real animals. So the zoophile is typically the person engaging in it. So basically it's bestiality. It's the sexual attraction to animal skin or fur or scales or whatever.
And is it like just like actual animals, or can it be towards like furry type of stuff, or is it actual?
It's kind of both, like a hot piece of discourse. So take this what you will. Although sexual, not all zoophiles choose to engage with the sexual contact, but for those who do, they state they love the animal and the sexual act. When it's done, they have a deeper and spiritual relationship with the animal So it's not like the sexual expression between humans. So they use this emotional definition to separate themselves from like bestiality, because bestiality is just like, oh, I'm turning into a beast and I'm gonna do things with animals. With this, they're like more like, oh no, like I really identify with being like a tiger in the jungle, and because of that, I love cats. Like it's mess, and I feel gross even discussing it, but unfortunately some people kind of feel that way. It's a common misconception that people in the furry fandom are zoophiles. That's not true. Not everyone is a zoophile. Just like there are people gross in regular society, there are people who are gross in the furry fandom. So don't think that about every single furry out there. Some people, they take it a step further and put it into action, because sometimes they imagine this needs to happen, but they never act on it. But for some people, they actually do. After that tweet came out about those alleged accusations and whatever, he tweeted, don't hug cacti, doesn't condone any immoral or illegal activity, and that they were taking a break from social media to help with social media addiction and other personal issues. So she left. She dropped everything and just kind of bounced. Later on, Scuff Coyote deleted the apology because he left it up for a month and it was time to move on. So they did ask for some legal fees, and then pretty much after that, things went a little bit quiet as far as their Twitter account go. And it's just like a bunch of back and forth on Twitter, honestly. But the update kind of ends with them seeking legal action and exploring all of their avenues to address the attacks on them. It's really gross, but it's all alleged, right? Nothing's been proven in the court of law. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty. But their GoFundMe was funded within 24 hours. One person named Bear met Lucky when they were 15 or 14 back in 2012, 2013-ish. And it just started off because they saw they were making fursuits and they were giving them praise, like, wow, you're doing such a good job making fursuits. And so literally Bear flipped over the moon. This was amazing. Like literally the best people in the market are messaging you and giving you attention and saying you're doing amazing. And so they were talking here and there. All of a sudden, Lucky got mad, saying she found a rude comment that Bear made on a fursuit review of her company, which, yes, it was true. It was regarding the low quality, and not gonna lie, this was before they started talking. And so she asks her to give her a call and discuss this. And so literally she's trembling, like, oh my God, she's gonna be so pissed off at me. And so with shaking hands, picked up the phone and dialed her idol. So many things were running through her head, like, oh my gosh, things are gonna be okay. No, they're not, because she's pissed off and she needs to call and she's gonna yell at me the whole time. But she picks up the phone and Lucky says, oh, now we can be friends. And so like instantly it was like, oh, okay, well, that's all over and done with. Everything's fine, but things weren't fine. So that was kind of like the beginning of their relationship. And a lot of it was kind of like this red hot anger followed immediately by like warm, cuddly feelings like, oh, you're doing so good. So a lot of it was just Bear stroking her ego and, schmoozing. And I mean, can you blame her? Like, this is her idol. And so they started having a habit of going onto a video chat every single day after Bear got home after high school off the bus. So it was literally so anxious to her because she would have to raced home as fast as she could to start talking to her idol. It was the favorite part of her day. She would spend hours talking on video chat. They would talk, vent, make fursuits. It was a great time. And back then, she was dealing with a lot of stuff at home. There was a lot of tension between her and her parents, and Lucky would share her childhood with her. And so it would kind of just make her feel like everything was safe and warm. And this was a person who wanted her to succeed. So at this point, they'd been talking for a little bit, and she was venting about how her boyfriend sucks and how things just never ended up working out physically in their relationship. So Lucky went on to say, "Oh, I'll teach you how to finish." And Bear said, "You know what? I'm good." But Lucky followed up with some tips, even though she literally said, like, "Hey, I'm good. I don't need to." There was another instance where they were on a video call, and Lucky was cleaning her toys because they were apparently still wet during their video call time, and she wanted to show Bear. So at this time, Bear was like, "It's fine. We already had this talk, and like we're just a couple of girls just gabbing. It's fine." They were still talking every day like normal. There were some tensions in their relationship, but at the end of the day, it was just, they were just talking. Later on, when Bear was 17 and Lucky was 28, they met up at a con, and they literally spent the whole day together. They were having such a good day. She would allow Bear to shower in their hotel room and nap, since they had pretty much like back-to-back rooms. And she brought Bear deer-related gifts since her fursona was an elk at the time. And they spent a lot of time just smoking and having a good time. And even Bear tried on Lucky's fursuit to the group photo shoot, which was so huge. They hugged and cuddled a lot, but it was nothing crazy or sexual. But as time went on, Bear turned 18. And so she mentioned she had a super rich friend called Todd. And we'll get into Todd a little bit later. But they were going to have this big VIP experience at Electric Forest Music Festival. And they would literally pay for like the plane tickets, the tickets to the festival. Like Bear was over the moon. She just won the freaking lottery. And they went out to go meet Todd, and he was gay. So it was literally like there was nothing crazy. He's just like a really nice rich dude who likes both of them, and he rents cars for both of them. And unfortunately, Bear's luggage was lost, so she didn't have anything during the whole experience. She found some nice neighbors, and they were able to get her some clothes. And they took a lot of drugs. They were going to a festival, so there was LSD and weed and a couple of things. It was only one tab, but it lasted for hours, it seemed like. Immediately, Lucky seemed to be having a bad trip, is what she kept saying. She thought our neighbors were carnies, or I don't know what that exactly means. Like maybe like they're gonna rat her out, or they're just like carnivores or something crazy. But anyways, she began to pee everywhere, which is fine, like it's okay. Like you're on a bad trip. I understand. Sometimes you lose bodily control. Lucky, peed on every corner of our tent for territory. She peed on trees and bushes. Bear was overwhelmed. She had no idea what to do. Todd kind of took control because he's the adult, right? Like she just turned 18. How is she supposed to know how to deal with a full-grown adult peeing on stuff everywhere? So Bear leaves the festival. She gets out. She doesn't even say bye. Todd drives her to the airport. They get there, and at some point, Lucky approached a police officer saying, "I have weed and drugs on me. Help." And they took the weed and then left Lucky alone. So yeah, after that, things were really weird and she acted like nothing was wrong. But all the time she'd be like, God, I'm still tripping. That LSD isn't worn off. And all of it was just a blur. Todd and Lucky were twice the age of Bear. And the last time Bear ever saw Lucky, she kissed her forehead at the airport and barely replied to messages after that. So honestly, that's not even the worst of it. Imagine we're watching one of those iceberg videos. This is the very tip. Like, you can kind of see the iceberg. Now we're going to kind of get into it maybe a little bit. So this is from Fox's testimony. Full disclosure, this is where things get a little bit darker. They had a relationship with Lucky. It was rather short. So it's a little bit vague, and I completely respect that because they're terrified of what happened. Lucky made Fox a fursuit and paid for it, but it still meant a lot to them. And at the time, Fox thought that Lucky loved them, but it was just, more kind of like a infatuation, I guess. They became very close in a really short amount of time. Lucky would make Fox draw while she made suits, and that was just whoa. It felt like you're being picked out by your idol, and it feels something special, and wow, you're a muse. And so 19 didn't bother Fox at all. And it was at the time Lucky told Fox which pieces were the best to paw to. This means to masturbate to. And at the time, Fox thought this was mostly a joke. They drew a character, and I mean, it was adult artwork, and it had a rainbow dick. It wasn't that crazy. It was just okay, this is some silly furry porn. It's very satire, whatever. But it was still fun to draw. And Lucky would tell Fox what to draw sometime, and it really kind of turned her on. So she drew a picture of Fox's character, very explicit. At the time, Fox's character didn't have a gender, but Lucky drew it very feminine. So they were pushing a hyper feminine persona onto Fox, and that just wasn't what they were. So during the relationship, she was told a couple of times oh, your age is really low, but you're super mature for your age. Super mature. Which at the time, it's wow, yeah, I'm mature. I'm so old and dignified. But no, that's grooming. Okay? If I could count the amount of times in my life where I've been told that from adults, I'd freaking run. I don't know. It's crazy. But I was watching this TikTok where it's as I get older, I get less and less attention from older men. And that's so creepy to think about. Going back to the case, there was a time that Fox and Lucky were at a party together, and she encouraged Fox to come over and stay at her place and test her limit. So this is in the States, of course. But in the States, 19 is below 21, which is the legal drinking age. So she's underage in the States. So they drank crazy. And they've Fox drank at parties before, a cider, or it wasn't anything that crazy. She felt awful. This was her first time being properly drunk, borderline blackout drunk. They felt so awful they threw up in the sink. Lucky was also really, really drunk. At some point during that night, Lucky asked Fox what they masturbated to. And they told her they didn't masturbate. They were pretty much asexual at this point. And Lucky was shocked. You don't masturbate? And that made her feel really uncomfortable. Like she was doing something wrong. Oh, sorry, I didn't know this was the secret to find the lost city of Atlantis. Oh my God. So Lucky continued to dig into her and say, oh, you don't need to feel embarrassed around me. You can tell me anything. Fox wasn't lying at the time. This was not a thing they did. And then Lucky began to open up about herself. And I think that if she opened up, kind of would bring out this little possibility that she'd be like, oh, yeah, I do that too. Like, silly me. Yeah, I completely forgot about me doing gross things with animals. Boing. So Lucky went on to tell him about how they would go down on boys and boys would go down on her. She would kind of call herself like the Regina George of the furry fandom. It was at this point that Lucky told Fox that she used to have sex with animals. When it came to the furry art, Lucky would point out which pieces were anatomically correct, that real zoos would draw a real looking dog dick. She began showing her artwork and the zoo ones, and how if you drew paws on the hip, it was flagging attention to other zoos. At this point, zoos means like zoophile, I would assume. So she said, oh yeah, no, it was all wrong and I would never do it again. But Lucky went on to mention, like, I would never own a big dog again, just in case. Wink. Excuse me? Excuse me? Yeah. Fox was shocked when on social media she saw that Lucky got a German Shepherd a couple years later. Later that night, Lucky said that she was going to show her how to masturbate. They'd talked a lot and watched porn together, so it wasn't that shocking for Fox. Lucky got a bunch of her dildos and put them on a bed, and Fox thought this was going to be more instructional, but it wasn't. Before Fox knew it, Lucky's hands were down her pants. They didn't know how to feel about it. It was very uncomfortable. And Lucky must have seen how unrelaxed Fox was, because she pulled away and yelled at her, saying, I wasn't going to keep going if it didn't have your consent, and kept going on and being like, oh, like, it's fine. Like, we're just playing around. Like, I just want to help you. And so Fox, not wanting to make her feel bad or make her mad, she said it was okay, even though she was uncomfortable. And so Lucky was like, oh my gosh, you silly girl. Of course it's fine. And things continued from there. Fox remembered it hurt really bad, and she felt uncomfortable the whole time. But they didn't want to make Lucky mad, so they didn't say anything, and they thought it was their fault. Like, maybe they just weren't doing it right, and it started to hurt so bad that they tried to push Lucky off, saying, okay, it's fine. Yep, I think I got the idea. That's enough. And she tried to make her voice sound a little bit more huffy. So like, whew, yeah, that was great. That was amazing. Wow. You know, things like that. But Lucky continued to push and kept going. And she was determined not to stop. And she said something along the lines of, you have a cute cuppa, whatever that is. And they faked it and like went, oh yeah, so great. And Lucky seemed to purr with pleasure. She was very proud of herself and left quickly after. She left all the dildos on the bed so Fox could continue how to practice. Fox remembers sitting alone in the room and just wondering to themselves, was this how it was supposed to be? Was this normal? Did I do okay? Was Lucky mad at me? Why did she leave so quick? They felt confused, vulnerable, and they were in pain. Like, they hurt a lot. The next day, a friend told them, you really boosted Lucky's ego last night. And at this point, Fox's stomach just fell. What? Oh my God. It's been less than 24 hours and Lucky was already bragging, like telling everyone. What would everyone think? Like, what would her husband think about? Like, Lucky had a husband, okay? What would the husband think of Fox? A freaking homewrecker? Like, that's what? And why would Lucky even go on to tell everyone? And at this point, Fox interrupted the friend saying, yeah, she didn't make me finish, if that's what you're thinking. And their friend looked confused, saying, oh, Lucky told me that it was the best you ever had and that you've never done that before. Fox just said, I faked it. And their friend continued to be very uncomfortable, saying, well, Lucky said it was your first time. And also, like, she thinks you're lying, that, you know, something happened to you in the past. And at this point, it was devastating. Lucky went on to tell, like, their biggest secret that they told Lucky in full confidence. And they just went home and they cried and they painted. And to this day, they don't let people get that close to them. There is, I think, over maybe like 30 pieces of testimony from various peoples on here. They're all varying degrees of disgusting and wrong and horrifying. And yeah, I surely feel sorry for those people who unfortunately had this chance. I'm going to tell you Horse's story, which involves some animal abuse and death. So if you're not in the right space for this, please fast forward in the video or watch another one of our videos. Like, just if you're not ready to hear something really gross. So this is from a person named Horse. They were friends with Lucky from 2010 to 2014. And during that entire time, they witnessed Lucky abuse animals and people. Lucky really liked to pit people against each other and create drama and throw people under the bus. At some point, like, you know, it would be like, oh yeah, we're great friends, but did you hear this about them? Yeah, she was actually assaulted when she was a kid. Disgusting, right? She was probably begging for it, you know. She would go on to say things about like that with her best friends, like just absolutely decimate them. And one time, Lucky came over covered in scratches and bites. She claimed that one of her rabbits had bloat and she had to physically crush it to death with her hands because it wouldn't have been able to live. Instead of putting it to sleep like a normal person, she fucking mushed it up with her hands.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Horse saw the scratches and the bites with her own eyes. That rabbit was clearly fighting for its life. That was not normal. Another time, Lucky told Horse that she had let some of her rabbits go in the backyard because she didn't want them anymore and no one on Craigslist wanted them. Lucky said that she could hear their screams as they were carried off by an owl or a hawk or whatever. And this was actually part of the natural circle of life. And this was good for nature. This was fine. Later on, Lucky got a baby macaw and realized it was too much work. And this was like a proper like parrot. Like you see on like Pirates of the Caribbean, he's hanging out on your shoulder. Great. Lucky and her husband didn't like it because it screamed all the time. The breeder refused to take the birds back. So Lucky just listed it on Craigslist and said they were moving to an apartment and needed a good home. And that's it. Like, it's fine. It's great. It's just a baby and it's not great. And Lucky said to Horse that the bird had been acting weird and it had seizures and that she wasn't going to say anything about it because no one would want the bird. Lucky has a clear display of adopting and purchasing pets and abandoning them when they're too much to handle. nothing's wrong if you have too many pets and you get over your head and life changes and all of a sudden you can't provide them with the best life that they deserve. That's fine. But if you have a habit of doing it over and over and over again, there might be a problem. Back in 2007, when this whole thing began, Lucky had a cat named Sparta. Later on, they get a Pomeranian named Trixie, and they only had it for about a week before surrendering it to a vet and saying it had health problems. Yeah, it seems like it's just a constant string of abuse and things going on. So they had a Sheltie puppy named Pepsi, and there was one point where they were talking with Horse about this dog named Pepsi, and this beautiful little angel dog would be sleeping, and either Lucky or her husband would come up and grab Pepsi's butt while she was sleeping, and she would get so scared. Like, this dog would get up and immediately start screaming and running, and they encouraged her to get riled up by other people, like getting out and running and barking at this dog, and they would continue to treat this like it was some kind of a game. They would make this kind of pop noise out of their mouth, and immediately this dog would put the tail down and slunk out of the room, terrified. The thing that keeps me up about that is they have a history of being really disgusting with animals, and the fact that immediately this dog started screaming when they grabbed its butt. I don't want to insinuate anything, but it's quite possible that things were pretty gross.
Yeah, I've heard like stories. They say like animals actually show the same like symptoms as like children do of abuse.
Yeah, 100%. In 2014, Lucky went through a rough patch and coped by adopting rabbits, like we mentioned. First she started with 1, and then it grew to 4, and eventually it was 10 or 15. It was crazy. There was so much. It was impossible to cage them all, so she let them all run free in the backyard, like we mentioned, and they would escape through gaps into the French or to the golf course, or they would be predated upon. But her favorite rabbit was a guy, tan white Dutch rabbit named Arrow. And Arrow was the only one that Lucky kept regularly caged to protect. One day, another anonymous person named Raccoon had come over while Lucky caged Arrow with a male Dutch rabbit so that they would breed and make cute Dutch babies. Shortly after they mated, Lucky grew sick of the male as he had fulfilled his purpose, and Raccoon watched as Lucky put him inside a box, and her husband drove around the neighborhood until they found a spot where they could release him. Any babies that they made were sold over Craigslist or eaten by predators. She even went on to have a lovebird with only one wing named Uno. And Lucky only had them for like maybe a year or so. And one day they just stopped posting them on Instagram. And Lucky called Raccoon in a pretty vague way and just said, "Oh yeah, Uno left." Yeah, birds most of the time don't open up their cage and just like pack up their bags, go out with all their pistachios, and leave through the front door. Lucky said that Uno had escaped his cage while it was outside, and he just ran away. The one winged bird. And Raccoon never fully believed the story. And how would this bird get outside in the first place in their little cage? And how would they open up the door and how would they escape the fence yard and run away. And by talking to another mutual friend, Lucky had actually told this other friend that Uno had fallen from a great height and injured himself. So, yeah, it's pretty likely that either her German Shepherd got to him, or she killed him or abandoned him, but we'll never know for certain what happened. Yeah, you can see frequently on their Instagram the dogs playing with the birds nearby. Another thing about the care for Uno is he was often kept in a plastic bin as his home, much like people keep snakes, which has holes to breathe, but not much else for a bird. Like it was a clear plastic bin with a Tupper style lid. It couldn't have been more than 3 inches deep. She would have quails and budgies. Like, honestly, it was just crazy ass shit happening in their house. Further to go on with these animals, Lucky said that they never specifically practiced zoophile, but they had close friends who did it, and they had sex with animals, and they at least knew that Lucky liked the idea of having sex with animals, but they, as you can tell from the other people in the testimony, they clearly possibly acted on this zoophile tendency. One person named Raven had a conversation with Lucky when they brought up zoophilia, saying that Lucky's true virginity was lost when she had sex with her family's German Shepherd. Raven was shocked and quickly became aware that this was not a safe place to be. Lucky kept talking on and on and on about it, and Raven was just like, oh yeah, yep, sure. And eventually Lucky's husband came back and took Raven home. A lot of her art is hypersexual drawings of dogs, and she goes by the handle of Blonde Foxy. One of her taglines on one of her drawings, "You're hot and then you're cold." Lucky then goes on to say, "Just felt like drawing it. It's me as a Pomeranian. I call her Lux. Lux is looking for a thick pup." I can't. Yeah. A lot of her artwork is her persona and the Pomeranian character. And there's a large amount of her male husky character named Dallas. And he is just posted up with his huge member all over the place. It's just, but a lot of it is like also merged with like a German Shepherd. Yeah, there's a lot of comments saying German Shepherds are so handsome, just can't resist. You see the line of German Shepherds waiting, but they're there. Wag, wag, pant, pant. Yeah. Her husband, Scuff Coyote, comments a lot on the art or a whole bunch of things, and he's not innocent in this whole situation. Let me just make this very clear. There's allegations about him too, but you know, there's lots of posts. They're very avid on being online. But Lucky went on to say, "If you saw me in the back of a police car, what do you think I got arrested for?" Her husband went on to say, "I want to fuck that dog in the ass. That's right, kids." Yeah. And he also drew very crazy art as well, too.
The fact they're comfortable with like saying it out loud is, oh.
I don't feel comfortable saying this stuff. It's awful. It's horrible that some people think this way.
Yeah.
And these were people that were huge in the community and they had a lot of say. And they went on to do horrible and atrocious things to so many young people and like probably older people too. No one was, you know, completely innocent from their scathed interactions with these people. So I just want to tell you one more story about this guy named Todd. And you might have remembered that from talking about Bear. And he's a guy, he's in his 30s, he's working hard. And so a lot of his experiences are his to share, and he believes they are true and fair. The fursuit company had been a huge, prolific force and represented in events around the world. These people were huge. I can't express how massive their influence was across the globe. Furries aren't localized entirely to the United States. They go all over the world. People love animals, and that's okay that they do. They can express themselves however. That's fine. In 2014, Todd commissioned a fursuit from Lucky over email. And Lucky replied with her phone number and asked if Todd would like to visit and stay at their home. This was huge. Todd was blown away, and this was completely unexpected. He made plans for a couple months out to go and fly, and overall he visited their house for a couple times. There's about 3 to 4 times a night. So there were consenting adults present, that's fine. And we don't need to go into the nitty and gritty about that. Frequently, there would be rabbits set loose to fend for themselves and become food. Yeah, people would disappear, come back. It was very confusing what was happening in there. But it was a very emotionally charged, spontaneous, and unpredictable place to be in. He goes on to tell his side of the story at the festival, and he collaborates with Bear that this situation happened. Yes, Lucky did walk up to an agent and say that I hid drugs in her luggage as Bear was going through. Of course, there were no drugs, but she was just kind of goofing around, I guess. And so at the end, when they finally left the airport, Lucky wouldn't speak with Bear, and the whole thing was very awkward and sad. But they were very lucky that no one was injured or jailed. And it was very poor decision making on everyone's part on what happened. Thankfully, Bear went on to not associate with Lucky anymore. He brought them together, and what inspired, they all got home in one piece. I'm happy to report that the company pretty much has gone AWOL, and a lot of the people are, not supporting them anymore. It's been a couple of years since all this controversy came out, and I don't think anything has been proven in the court of law yet. They're still in business, but they're not as prevalent as they used to be. So, yeah, just take it with a grain of salt. Everything we said is alleged. So, to continue on the story of furries and furries that went wrong, if you're eating, please stop. This is the story of the furry who ate so much poop he might have died. Yeah. So his current whereabouts are unknown. We don't know if he's living or if he's dead, but we're going to talk about Messy Tails, the brown-nosed pup, a little bit. So self-described, Messy Tails is a brown-nosed pup who is an anthropomorphic dog that resembles a mix between a husky and an Australian cattle dog. Thank God it's not a German Shepherd.
Oh my God.
So the brown-nosed pup, as his name suggests, has a brown nose that is caked in feces. He has green eyes, gray fur that is sometimes covered in mange, and off-white patches of fur can be visible if he were to bathe. For the most part, he does not. So Messy Tails began his infamy on Twitter. You can find his account, and the first thing you'll notice is that, yes, he's a furry, and yes, he does live up to his title of being a very messily tailed guy and brown nose because he cannot stop eating poop. And please don't look up this case. I looked it up, and you don't want to see the things that I saw because...
Isn't it right on his Twitter? Or it was, I think.
It used to right be on there. I didn't go that far into it because the second I saw some things, I just kind of clicked off. I was like, you know what? I don't think I need that in my mind. It's fine. He pretty much existed entirely on Twitter or X. He wasn't there for the X switch. But he is actually into animals, and he doesn't really talk too much about that. He mostly just talks about being fat and his goals in life and things happening in his life, and of course, eating poop. So in 2013, that's when he made his first tweet. Today, for me, is Mud Butt Monday. I forgot to wipe. That's the tweet. The first time on Twitter, he goes on to talk and sometimes post about the things that he actually did, but it's a couple of years before he actually posts a single image about what he's actually doing. So in the most part, it's just like, it's probably him fantasizing about what he's doing. Like a lot of the time he just talked about stuff he wanted to do. Like this time he fantasized about stealing some dog poop and sneaking it home and shoving it up his butt. This is his tweet verbatim: pawing while thinking. And remember, pawing doesn't mean what we think it means. Pawing while thinking of finding fresh dog shit, sneaking it home in my pants, pushing it in, me licking my muddy paws while pushing it out. Okay, it's ridiculous, but this is, this is someone's life. This is his kink. Okay, I'm not here to kink shame. You do you, boo. As long as you're not hurting anyone or, stealing dogs, you do what you need to do. But eating stuff that shouldn't be ingested is not healthy. And I'm just here for your health if you want to do things like this or you are doing things like this. One time he tweeted about wanting to have a peanut butter and poop sandwich. This is his tweet verbatim: hashtag TMIT Tuesday. I want to be force-fed meals with my own mess. Peanut butter and poop sandwiches, chocolate poop milkshakes, poop donuts. Epic. That's some Gordon Ramsay shit. That's what I'm talking about. So a lot of this early phase about him on Twitter is just doing kind of like fantasy, hopefully fantasy imagination about things that he wants to do, like pooping himself and going to sleep in his mess and waking up itchy because he slept in it. But a lot of what he talks about are just kind of ideas. Later in life and his time on Twitter, it's kind of him devolving into a no way around it, messy boy. And he just kind of becomes an absolute danger to himself. At first, he really talks a lot about his living situation and how upset he is that he doesn't have a place to be messy. One of his tweets goes, I may have the chaps to be messy tomorrow evening, but I want to try a diaper for the first time, but I don't know where to get one. Any store? Yeah, there's a lot of stores to get diapers. But he did have a lot of people, and I shouldn't say a lot of people, there were some people that gave him some traction in the early days on Twitter. Like, I'm not saying he went viral or anything. There was like a couple comments here and there, like people in the community just wanting to support a man who really wants to be messy, because he posted a tweet one time saying, is there such a thing as a catheter for the butt, something that forces it open all the time? I want to explore a loss of control. To which someone suggested, why don't you just go buy an open butt plug? He also liked cooking. So he would post, does oatmeal mixed with poop easy? I'm wondering. So he also posts a lot about wanting his fursuit. And he really, 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 really wanted his fursuit. It was supposed to be this white German Shepherd, but he went on to say it won't stay white for long.
Oh, no wonder he wanted it white.
Yeah. A lot of the time he would post about his mess getting stuck in his fur when he didn't actually have a fursuit. And I'm not quite sure if that was fantasy or if he was just talking about, getting in his hair, like literally his body hair. But, this is before anything actually happened. So eventually he ended up getting a job, I imagine, and he ended up buying his first car. And he all of the time talked about how much he wanted his own space to be messy. And finally he got the chance. He said, "Squish, it was so worth the wait. Decided I don't want my car to stink though, so I waited until home." That's great, and I'm glad he didn't get his mess all over his new car. And eventually, he was so close to finding his own place. And in 2014, he was posting about how he was finally about to move out. But then a month later, he lost his job, and he lamented in 2015 before he disappeared for an entire year off of Twitter. So this probably was his time to really think about what he wanted to do, how he wanted his message to be. I have no idea. But this man came back with a freaking vengeance on the Twitter. As in 2016, he posted, "I've not used this much, and I think it's time to change that." And okay, he began posting pictures. Now, we're in the picture era. And I'm going to try my best to make this as YouTube friendly as possible. But he kind of got like these, like those mitts that you use in the shower to like lather up soap.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had one of those kind of. And he put like white fur on it. And he posts a picture of him wearing these, I guess, paws. And he's holding a poop. And he squeezes the poop, and now his hands are brown. And that's what he posts.
Everybody's so creative.
Yeah. The next thing he goes on to post is he has a toy next to big poop for size comparison. And then he goes on to mash the toy and poop together, and it's just a big mess, and it's really gross. That's the one I saw, and I wish I could go back and unsee that. And so on and so forth. He has a plastic baggie mixed with lube and grossness, and he unmuzzles himself with the dog poop and licks it like a good meal, but he'll never get it perfectly clean. Oh, God. Yeah, it's gross. So, by all account, he's finally living the life that he had dreamed of. And he really had this big fantasy of being covered in poop all the time. And he wanted to live a bad diet, gross fat, constantly being covered in poop and oozing out all the time. Okay? That's so gross. And I'm so sorry I had to say those words. So he constantly would eat a lot of fast food, and he would post about how much he stinks and how much it slid out from his tail hole. And yeah. And yeah. And how much he ate and how much he would keep defecating. And it would always smear somewhere or get stuck in an unreachable patch of fur. But no worries, it'll be eaten tomorrow and turned into next day's post. Okay, so at some point he started posting about how his family intervened into him because he would post, they put me in a hospital and make me take pills, but now I'm home and no one can stop me from covering myself. So yeah, he would eat entire used diapers. He would make a couple more posts in November saying, "I can't stop eating all this poop. She has a powerful and itchy taste." Yeah, he would kind of go on to just go absolutely rabid and just be like, poop is all he thinks about. And in 2018, it was his very last post he ever made, saying that things were very rough and it's going to be okay, but it might take a while. He goes on to say, I hope you're all doing well and staying messy. That's great. And I'm very hopeful lots of people are staying clean. Unfortunately, no one really knows what happened to him. It's one of, I don't want to say the internet's greatest mysteries, but this is where he went viral because people are speculating all the time what happened to him. There's a Reddit post from a guy who apparently knows him in high school, who said he died from an overconsumption and lack of nutrients of eating feces. However, that's a post on Reddit or a tweet or whatever. It's still live and you can go and read it. Yes, you can die from eating your own waste. So I'm not going to say this all because you don't need to know it because you're not actually going to eat your own poop. Please don't, viewer. But yeah, it's minimally toxic because the bacteria found in your intestines aren't supposed to harm you. They're meant to help you absorb nutrients. It probably shouldn't kill you, but it's not healthy for you. So yeah, he's either alive out there or he went to a hospital or he got help. And I hope he's out there just not living a messy life anymore and he's clean.
Yeah, that's the best. I can't imagine like being the family member in that. Like I can't imagine if I had to go to like you and be like, don't eat your shit.
Yeah, dude, you actually really stink. Have you ever thought about not eating your own poop?
Oh my god, that'd be so embarrassing.
Yeah, it's very likely that the fate of this person is something that's always going to be shrouded in mystery for the rest of time. And I think that's okay. Like, I don't think we need to know more about the messy side of Messy Tales. And I just hope he's doing well. But let us know in the comments, what do you think about Messy Tales? Is what happened actually real or a fallacy? Or let us know your thoughts and opinions down below.
Yeah, like what if he was just a giant troll and he just got tired of trolling and was like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think he was though, because I feel like you would kind of drop that.
Yeah, at some point, I mean, yeah, you never know. You never know with people. Some people are out there, some people are truly sick, like the people at the beginning of this case. But thank you so much for listening. I hope we explained this case with as much factual information as we could. And again, we meant no harm. And if we said anything wrong, please let us know. And remember, everything we said was alleged. It's not proven fact in the court of law. Take care of yourself. Bye.